They discovered shocking lessons from biblical figures revealing what you must let go of. Few knew what truly happened that night, under the shadow of the ancient oak, when whispers of the past danced through the wind. It was in the desert, far from civilization, where secrets buried deep within the sands clawed their way to life. Moses stood at the edge of the great divide, his heart pounding. The Israelites, exhausted from their endless wandering, looked to him with desperate eyes. They felt a tremor in the air, something miraculous yet horrifying was about to unfold. They had seen plagues, parting seas, but now they faced their greatest challenge, their own fears. The night crackled with the intensity of unsaid words, a heaviness hanging like the dark clouds above. In that moment, a flicker of illumination caught Moses' eye. An impossibly bright flame ignited in the distance. It wasn't just fire. It was divine. Yet the ground felt unsteady beneath him, as if the very earth trembled with a knowing horror. Everyone watched, breaths held tight. What if they weren't ready? What if they chose comfort over chaos? A wrong move could lead to calamity. Moses could feel the clamoring doubts infiltrate the hearts of the people. Would they believe? Would they let go of their past? The dilemma was palpable, the tension thick. And in that raging storm of uncertainty, the flame spoke. A voice echoed, "Let go of the chains that bind you." It reverberated, a chilling call to release their burdens, their doubts, their resentments. But could they? Eyes widened, fear danced in their expressions. What would surrender demand of them? Would it come with a cost? They each felt it, a lump in their throats, trembling hands, the weight of history pressing down on them. The ground beneath seemed alive, calling them to face their demons. The onlookers shifted restlessly. "This is madness," one muttered, fretting over the uncertainty. "We're not ready for such a leap." Another frowned, overwhelmed by the heaviness of the moment. And yet, amid the chaos, there was a spark of hope. A small child reached forward, her hand trembling but resolute. With bravery only the innocent can possess, she stepped towards the flame. A collective breath was held. What happened next? Did they follow her lead, or were they destined to remain shackled by their own fears? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Moses stood frozen, the brilliance of the divine flame illuminating the fear and hope etched on the faces of the Israelites. The air was thick with might and mystery, each heartbeat amplifying the tension stretching taut among the crowd. A whisper floated through the air, threading its way through the minds of the people. What do we truly seek? The child, small and fragile, took a step forward, her little fingers reaching towards the radiant light. The flame flickered, almost as if responding to her innocence, and the circle of anxious onlookers parted as if the very earth recognized her courage. Who will follow her? Moses called, his voice steady yet imbued with an urgency that could only come from the heart of a leader beset by doubt. The question hung in the air, echoing against the desolate rocks and dry sand. Stillness enveloped the crowd. Eyes glanced nervously at one another, each individual mired in their own internal wrestle. They had been wanderers for so long, and surrender felt alien. The very chains they thought they had long shattered clung tightly, whispering tales of familiarity and comfort. Among the throng, an elderly man, weathered by years of loss, felt his heart constrict. What if letting go means losing everything? He pondered, memories flooding back of loved ones lost, of life back in Egypt where the burdens were tangible but known. A young mother cradled her baby close, torn between the promise of freedom and the fear of the unknown. Who will protect us beyond the safety of this familiar pain? She silently questioned, her love for her child battling against the uncertainty of the uncharted future. Yet, amidst the apprehension, the child continued forward. The flame danced, casting shadows that flickered like the doubts in the hearts surrounding her. It was as if the light itself yearned to weave through their fears, showing them glimpses of what life could be like if they chose to believe. Well, a voice broke the silence, deep and resonant. It was Miriam, Moses' sister, stepping forth. If she can take that leap, should we not follow? Have we not lost enough already? Her call was laced with an earnestness that ignited the dormant embers of resolve within some. Others hesitated, clinging to the chains of their histories, their collective trauma seeping through the cracks of their lives. What if we fail? A voice quivered. What if we saw? Miriam replied, the edge of defiance sharpening her tone. The child turned, her small face radiant with trust, and something shifted in the group. Slowly, a man, then a woman, stepped forward, their futures intertwining with the hope dangling precariously before them. The flame danced higher as if urging the hesitant onlookers to awaken. Moses felt a stirring in his heart as the 40 days of indecision began to melt away. Perhaps this was the moment they had all been waiting for, the true crossing of a threshold where future and past collided, beckoning for transformation. And as the cries of the children nestled amid the crowd rose in unison, questions laced into their innocent exclamations, the ground beneath them pulsated with energy, as if the ancient soil held witness to their struggles. What would it take for them to remember that freedom was not merely a destination, but a journey that began within? Who are we if we do not dare? Moses thought, a new conviction kindling in his spirit. Yet, the question remained. What sacrifices would they have to make, and what whispers of the past would try to hold them back as they sought to emerge from the shadows? Would they find the strength to let go, to truly step into the light? The light from the divine flame seemed to pulse in rhythm with the hearts of the Israelites, illuminating not just their path but their deepest fears and desires. The child's innocent courage ignited an unspoken bond, a recognition that perhaps the chains of the past were not merely made of iron, but of memories and fears woven tightly together in the fabric of their identities. Moses glanced around, his heart heavy yet hopeful. He observed the elderly man, still ensnared by the shadows of his past. What must be abandoned to walk forward? He asked silently, wishing to understand the weight of such burdens. Would relinquishing his memories, those bittersweet anchors to life, enable him to embrace the unknown ahead? As more individuals stepped forward, others began to murmur among themselves, questioning their own bonds to the past. A voice called out from the back, what of the treasures we leave behind? It was a trade of riches for the promise of something intangible yet profoundly real. Their possessions, both physical and emotional, seemed to hold power over them, a power that flickered with the flame. Miriam, who had drawn some others forward, spoke again, her voice ringing clear through the discord of doubt. What treasures are greater than the freedom of our souls? What good are our crowns if they bind us in chains? Her fervor stirred some hearts, yet still the specters of the past loomed large, whispering doubts. A young man named Eli, whom the people regarded with a mix of admiration and envy for his strength, stood with furrowed brow. I have fought battles, endured hard labor, yet what will my strength matter in a world unknown? What if my power is not enough? He felt the pressure of expectation crushing his resolve, and he stepped back, unsure. Just then, a woman from the crowd, Leah, raised her voice, embodying concern mixed with wonder. But could it be our fears hold more power over us than our strength? If we believe darkness reigns, how can we embrace the brilliance before us? Her thoughts navigated through the crowd like a whispering breeze, seeking to untangle their fears. The child, undeterred, reached her hand out once more. It sparked an instinctual response in the faces around her, a mirror reflecting their desires to leap forward but also their hesitation. Each person exchanged glances filled with questions. Am I ready? Can I release the familiar? What lies on the other side of this leap? The uncertainty spun a web of introspection woven across their collective journey. Moses sensed a shift within himself too. Perhaps true leadership is not found in the strength to command or control, he reflected, but in the courage to listen to those who doubt. He felt an urgency to guide not just with authority but with empathy, understanding their fears as valid pieces of their journey. With the night deepening, the flame cast tall shadows that danced against their silhouettes, as if the very night was a canvas for their dreams and fears. The vacuum of silence stretched before them. Would they choose to fill it with resolve or retreat into familiar darkness? The murmurs swelled again, voices rising and falling like the waves, echoing the turmoil within. What if the path leads to battles unforeseen? What if we fail again? Whispered one. Oh, but what if we heal? A voice interjected, full of hope and longing. Moses stepped forward, sensing the weight of the moment pressing heavily upon all. We must confront what binds us, even when it feels like our very essence. What we leave behind may not define us, but what we choose to follow could lead us into truth and liberation. As the luminous flame flickered just above, a stillness unearthed within the Israelites. They found themselves grasping for resolve amid their tangled emotions, allowing space for transformation. Yet in that pregnant pause of anticipation, a deeper question lingered, woven among the rising hopes and fears. What is it that we must truly abandon in order to ignite our journey towards the light, and are we prepared to embrace the unknown awaiting us just beyond our fears? As the flickering flame cast its gentle glow, illuminating the faces turned upwards in reverent expectation, an unseen tension pulsed through the air, as if the very fabric of their reality was poised on the cusp of revelation. Moses stood among his people, every eye awaiting the wisdom that might grace this heavy moment. He felt a stirring within him, a calling to share what he had learned in the stillness of the wilderness. Before he could voice the lessons etched upon his heart, the ancient shadows danced closer, as if urging past stories to rise and speak. Gather around, he beckoned, inviting both the brave and the fearful into the folds of his words. Let me remind you of our forefathers, of those who walked through deserts, faced giants, and wrestled with angels. A hush fell as memories of Adam and Eve, Noah, and Abraham echoed in their minds, figures marked not only by triumph but equally by fault and fallibility. They, too, were called to abandon what they held dear. The garden, the comforts of home, the certainty of life. Adam and Eve's choice led them from paradise, but it also led them on a path of understanding and growth. For every relinquishment, there was a blossoming in understanding. Eli, still grappling with the weight of expectations, felt a new surge of curiosity. But their burdens were lighter, were they not? They were chosen by the divine for a reason, he questioned, his skepticism woven tightly into each syllable. Moses regarded him with compassion. They were indeed chosen, Eli. And they suffered greatly for it. They knew the depth of pain and joy intertwined. It is through adversity that we forge our greatest strengths, both as individuals and as a people. No, their burdens were not lighter, but they dared to release their fear of failure. Miriam stepped forward, emboldened by the evolving narrative. And what of Hagar? She offered, her voice gaining strength. She, too, was cast aside, yet through her struggle, she discovered her own path in the wilderness. In that moment of abandonment, she encountered the divine. What if our pain this night births new life? A murmur of contemplation rippled through the crowd. Leah's eyes brightened with newfound insight. So it is not the absence of struggle that defines us, but rather how we rise from beneath its weight. What stories do we have to unearth within us? Moses nodded, sensing the spark of inspiration igniting throughout the gathering. Yes, the journey ahead is not devoid of challenges, but each step forward requires us to shed our fear of the fight. We must learn to see each obstacle as an opportunity to redefine our identities, much like how the stones in a river shape and smooth one another over time. Yet amid the collective energy, a shadow still lingered. One man, trembling with uncertainty, dared to ask, what if we step forward only to discover that our past is our true home? What if it is too painful to leave behind? The memories, they are all we have in that moment. A poignant silence blanketed the crowd, as though the night itself held its breath. Moses found strength in vulnerability. Must our memories be chains, or can they be the very seeds of our liberation? He wondered aloud. The pain of yesterday does not have to define our tomorrow. We can carry our stories like stars in the night sky, bright, guiding, yet not shackling us to darkness. The flame surged, casting long shadows that flickered playfully around them, drawing eyes back to its mesmerizing dance. As it crackled softly, the Israelites began to feel the warmth of hope wrapping around their hearts. What might they discover if they allowed themselves to be shaped by the journey ahead? Moses concluded, it is time for us to cultivate a new narrative, one defined not by past wounds but by the promise of tomorrow's dawn. Are we ready to embrace what lies beyond our fears and uncertainties? As the crowd stood in quiet reflection, questions swirled like the flames before them. What stories can we weave from our struggles? Can we trust in the unknown and find freedom in our heart's deepest courage? Moses felt the palpable anticipation in the air, the quiet hum of hearts wrestling with the enormity of his words. The flames danced, and shadows flickered more insistently, mimicking the turmoil within their souls. It was as if the ancient spirits of their ancestors gathered around them, listening and longing to impart further wisdom born from both triumph and despair. As the embers glowed, Moses lowered his voice, allowing the weight of silence to draw them in. There are lessons beyond the victories of our forebears. They were marked by trials that sharpened their faith. We stand on the edge of our own trials, waiting for the call to move forward, yet tethered by fear. Suddenly, a woman spoke from amid the crowd, her eyes flashing with reflection. What of Job? He lost everything: his children, his fortune, his health. In his pain, he questioned the Almighty, demanding understanding. Yet even in despair, he clung to a thread of faith. What does that say about our own struggles? A ripple of murmurs surged forth from the crowd as Moses met her gaze with solemn acknowledgement. Indeed, Job reminds us that questioning is a pathway to deeper understanding. It is in our honest grappling with pain that we unearth the most profound truths about ourselves and our existence. Like gold tested by fire, we emerge from our trials refined. Miriam interjected, her voice steady. Job's story is also one of restoration. He lost everything but gained deeper insight into the divine. His journey teaches us that our greatest losses can lead to unimaginable renewal. How can we embrace such hope now? The tension in the air shifted, becoming pregnant with promise. The fire crackled anew, its warmth radiating hope through the cold night. Moses sensed their yearning, an unspoken wish to uncover the hidden depths of their shared narrative. Consider the Israelites' own journey, he continued. Years spent in bondage taught us more than any comfort ever could. We emerged through trials, and the lessons learned were etched into our very beings. Liberation does not merely come from being freed but from understanding what we have endured, living not only with scars but with wisdom. His words lingered, hovering like the smoke curling into the night. Eli, his skepticism now tempered with curiosity, raised his hand. But if our suffering leads to growth, how then do we reconcile the enormity of it? How do we honor our history without allowing it to bind us? Moses turned to him, finding in the youth's question a shared vulnerability. We honor our history by not allowing it to define our entirety. Each pain can strengthen us if we choose to learn from it. Consider the shepherd's staff. It guides, supports, yet also bears the marks of the journey traveled. It becomes a symbol of both struggle and guidance, but as Moses spoke, shadows deepened, pulling the attention of the crowd back to the flickering flames. A sense of foreboding began to weave into the warmth. Yet, he cautioned, with growth comes responsibility. Are we ready to embrace the weight of that responsibility? Will we choose to share the fruits of our trials with others, or will we keep our lessons hidden within? A stillness enveloped them, and doubt flickered through their thoughts. Leah's voice broke the silence, vibrant yet tinged with trepidation. But what if sharing our truths lays bare our scars? What if vulnerability exposes us to new wounds? In that moment, a quiet recognition passed among the assembled souls. They mirrored one another's fears, understanding that the act of stepping into the light might render them exposed but could also lead to healing. Moses watched as they wrestled with this concept, the complexity of transparency in a world that often shied away from authenticity. Perhaps our openness can forge bonds, Moses pondered aloud, a community strengthened by the weight of shared burdens. In sharing, we find not only healing but also purpose. As the fire crackled softly, illuminating the faces around him, a new question hung in the air as poignant as the flickering flame itself: can we gather the courage to transform our scars into stories of strength, or will we allow fear to hold us captive in the shadows of our past? Moses observed the shifting expressions in the crowd, illuminated by the dancing flames. Doubts and hopes wove together in their eyes as they contemplated the vulnerability required to share their truths. He sensed a stirring among the gathered souls, a question emerging not just from his heart but from the collective spirit anchored in that sacred moment. Who among you remembers the tale of Abraham? He asked, inviting a soft musing among them. He was promised great descendants, yet time passed, and the promise seemed distant, a test of faith that stretched as long as the desert sands. From the edges of the crowd, an elder spoke, his voice rich with the weight of remembrance. Abraham struggled with doubt, did he not? The long wait for the child he was promised. Yet, when he let go of his disbelief, he embraced a faith that brought forth Isaac. Moses nodded. Precisely. Abraham's journey teaches us that sometimes, the act of letting go is more profound than holding on. What must we release to make way for the blessings we await? As the words settled, a silence enfolded them, thick with contemplation. Miriam's brow furrowed in reflective thought. But letting go can be painful. It's akin to releasing grasp on a precious limb, isn't it? How can one reconcile the fear of losing what they cherish with the hope of something greater? Moses gazed into the fire, where the flames leapt higher, reflecting the very essence of their dialogue. It is true, letting go is never easy. Consider the grain of wheat that must die to bear fruit. It surrenders its form but gives rise to new life. Faith often requires us to trust in an unseen promise. Do we harbor the courage to trust that there is more ahead, beyond the horizon of our understanding? Eli interrupted, his voice trembling with urgency. But what about when what we need to let go of is not just a tangible loss? What if it is our fear or the pain of a past wound? How do we release the memories that cling like shadows? Moses turned to Eli, seeing the rawness in his question. Oh, that is the crux of our journey. Many of us carry burdens from our past transgressions, sorrows, regrets. Like the Israelites' escape from Egypt, we must not only leave the physical chains but also the emotional shackles that bind us. As he spoke, the wind began to pick up, rustling the leaves in the trees surrounding them. The night air turned visceral with a sense of movement, akin to a promise unearthing itself. Let us find strength in the pact of forgiveness, he continued. Forgiving others, and more importantly, ourselves. Can we confront our past with honesty while choosing not to allow it to define our future? A ripple of acknowledgement danced among them, as Leah, resolute, added, but forgiveness doesn't erase the past, it shrouds it in a new light. What if our scars tell stories we must not forget? A moment's pause followed her insight, as Moses considered her words. Indeed, those scars hold wisdom. They connect us to our ancestors, echoing their trials and triumphs. Perhaps it is not about forgetting but rather integrating those experiences into the fabric of our being, creating strength from vulnerability. As the community reflected deeply, a metaphor began to bloom in their minds, that of the potter and the clay. The clay undergoes pressure, heat, and transformation, yet it is through these trials that it yields something beautiful and whole. Like the potter's hand on the clay, we are molded through our letting go, reshaped by the lessons of our journey. Are we ready to surrender to the process, trusting the hand that guides us? As the flickering flames waned into glowing embers, a contemplative air enveloped them, heavy with the gravity of their shared vulnerability. The night deepened, and in the quiet that followed, another question arose in the hearts of the gathering, echoing through their thoughts: what must we risk to embrace a future free from the hold of our past, and are we willing to walk through the fire of transformation to find our true selves? As the embers whispered their secrets into the night, a hush settled over the crowd, each soul enmeshed in the vibrant tapestry of their shared history and aspirations. The flickering light illuminated the deep creases of worry on some faces, while in others, glimmering hope ignited ancient dreams. Among them, a young woman named Sarah, her voice tinged with uncertainty, broke the stillness. Moses, she began, your words speak of letting go, yet what of our identities? Are we not shaped by our past experiences, by the burdens we carry? If we strip ourselves of those, who do we become? Moses turned his gaze to her, the fire reflecting the flickering shadows of his own thoughts. Her question resonated deeply within him. Oh, Sarah, our identities are indeed woven from our experiences, both light and dark. Yet, to cling too tightly to our scars is to risk being forever bound to them. To let go does not mean to lose oneself, rather, it is to transcend our former selves, allowing new growth to flourish. Leah, considering this perspective, added, but how do we discern what parts of our past shape us positively and what we must release? Is there a compass to guide our decisions in this wilderness of the heart? Moses felt the pull of the group's collective inquiry and smiled gently. Perhaps the compass lies in our values, in what resonates with the divine within us. Like the laws handed down at Sinai, they serve as a beacon. Does what we hold on to bring us closer to love, compassion, and grace? Or does it anchor us in fear, resentment, or shame? The wind picked up again, rustling more fervently through the trees surrounding them, as if the very creation conspired to reveal more of its wisdom. Miriam leaned forward, captivated by the flow of conversation. Yet, Moses, what of the stories we share, the familial tales, the tribulations of our forebears? They tell us who we are. Are they not vital to our understanding of self? Indeed, they are woven into our identity, Moses acknowledged. But remember Abraham and the covenant of promise. His past was not a prison but a foundation. He learned to pivot from his heritage, trusting in the prophetic future. Our stories can empower us, but only if we choose to learn from them without being ensnared in their chains. A flick of realization illuminated Sarah's gaze. So, we must learn to glean wisdom from our past while remaining pliable in our present. We must allow the past to inform our journey, not dictate our destination. Moses nodded solemnly, feeling the depth of understanding permeating the group. Correct. We must hold the duality of remembrance and release, forging a path toward both healing and depth. Consider the river flowing through this land. It carries sediments from the mountains but moves ever onward, forming new landscapes along its course. Yet, Eli interjected, his brow furrowed, what if we fear that we once survive without certain parts of our history? How can we face that fear? Moses sensed the weight of Ella's words. That fear is valid, for it is the unknown that often brings trepidation. But remember, the greatest transformations arise from our deepest trials. Is it not in the depths of the sea that pearls are formed? What we perceive as pain can ultimately yield beauty. We must be willing to stand at the edge of the unknown, trusting that we have the capacity to grow, to adapt, to thrive in the new soil of possibility. As the conversation unfolded, a profound silence enveloped them, each person wrestling with their own burdens, hopes, and fears. A soft rustle amidst the shadows drew their attention, and they turned to behold the darkened silhouette of an ancient figure emerging from the fringes of the gathering. Who approaches in this sacred moment? Moses called out, Curious and cautious, the figure stepped closer, and as the flames danced wildly in response, he revealed a stone tablet, etched with words that glowed faintly in the night. "I am a keeper of stories long forgotten," he spoke, his voice resonating like distant thunder. "I bear the lessons of those who have walked before you. Of the battles fought in the realms of letting go. Are you willing to discover what lies beneath the surface of what you must release?" The crowd pulsated with anticipation and trepidation, eyes widening in awe at the mystery before them. As the flickering light illuminated the stone, a question hung delicately in the air, waiting to be explored. What must we unearth from our history to find the freedom that lies in the depths of our souls? As the figure advanced from the shadows, the firelight revealed deep lines etched into his weathered face, lines born of reflection, resilience, and a profound understanding of the human journey. His eyes sparkled with the knowledge of ages, and it was as if he carried the weight of countless souls upon his shoulders. The tablet gleamed softly. More than just a stone, it bore whispers of history that resonated with the struggles and triumphs of those who had traversed the wilderness long before this moment. "Together closely," he beckoned, his voice low and melodic. "For the tales I carry speak of the fragile threads binding you to your past, threads that can either envelop you in warmth or ensnare you in shadows. Listen well, for there are truths to be learned from our ancestors." Intrigued, the crowd leaned in with bated breath, each person ready to grasp the revelations that might unlock their own uncertainties. The figure raised the tablet, and a single word flashed into view, illuminated by the firelight: treachery. He continued, "Consider the story of Joseph, cast into a pit by his own kin, betrayed for envy and jealousy. In his darkest hour, he clung to dreams not yet fulfilled. It was not the treachery of his brothers that shaped his destiny, but his response to it. He chose forgiveness and resilience, which transformed a tale of grief into one of grace. Yet," Miriam mused aloud, "was not the betrayal a part of him? How did he find the strength to let go of what was so painful?" The keeper nodded, encouraging the reflection. "Oh, the essence of letting go is not the rejection of one's past but the decision to redefine its meaning. Joseph carried the weight of that betrayal, but instead of allowing it to define him, he used it as a stepping stone toward compassion. In the service of his family during a time of famine, he showed that letting go of resentment can lead to healing and restoration." The crowd murmured softly, absorbing the weight of his words. Leaning forward, Sarah asked, "What else do the stories reveal? What about those who struggled not with others but within themselves?" The keeper's gaze intensified as he shifted to another tale etched on the stone. "Consider Jonah. A man run by fear and reluctance, he fled from the call to serve a people he deemed unworthy. It was only in the belly of despair, engulfed by the weight of his own choices, that he cried out for liberation. In his moment of repentance, he learned that flight from one's fears may only lead to deeper darkness. Jonah's journey teaches us that to let go of our prejudices and the confines of our comfort can ignite profound transformation not only in us but in the world around us." Eli, still enraptured by the discussion, reflected, "So we must confront and understand our own fears. But how do we face the things we have hidden so deeply?" "Courage, young man," the keeper replied, his voice tender yet resolute. "Courage to journey inward. You see, the steps taken to uncover what is concealed within can be the most liberating. Like the dust of the earth itself, you may find that an unturned stone may yield untold richness when examined in the light." The fire crackled, casting shifting shadows across the gathering as a new understanding settled over them. The pathway to letting go was beginning to unfurl, layered with complexities and marred with hesitations. Yet with all these stories, Leah pondered aloud, how do we sift through the lessons and wisdom to decide what to hold and what to release? Are we not equally afraid of losing parts of ourselves as we are of our burdens? The keeper paused, allowing the weight of the question to resonate within the hearts of those gathered. Indeed, the journey is fraught with uncertainty. What is required is discernment, a deep introspection. Just as the river sifts through stones, we must take the time to allow wisdom to surface and guide our intentions. It is the question itself what brings forth growth, that is vital. Moses, reflecting on the keeper's revelations, felt the energy shift towards something deeper, a growing understanding threaded through their collective consciousness. The group fell into contemplative silence, each grappling with their personal histories and the implications these stories held for their future. As the night draped its blanket of star-studded stillness overhead, a single question lingered, suspended in the air like an unfulfilled promise: what hidden depths of pain and potential lie within us, waiting to be unearthed and transformed for a brighter tomorrow? The night deepened, wrapping the circle in its velvety embrace where shadows danced playfully around the flickering flames. The air was heavy with anticipation, as the keeper continued to hold the tablet like a sacred relic, its symbols shimmering softly as if alive with stories yet to be told. Once again, he summoned the group with a simple gesture, his voice resonating like a bell tolling in the silence. There are many tales within these stones, and each reveals a facet of our human experience. Let us turn our hearts toward the lesson of Job, a man steadfast in faith yet overwhelmed by suffering. Despite the desolation that pierced his life and the loss of those he held dear, it was his unwavering search for understanding that illuminated his path. Job's faith was not mere submission, it was an exploration of the divine woven through the fabric of pain. A shiver ran through the crowd, for they felt the depth of his sorrow yet also the glimmer of hope that lay within Job's trials. But how, Isaac ventured, his voice trembling slightly, can one remain faithful when the world turns unbearably dark? Isn't it easier to surrender to despair? The keeper observed Isaac, his expression unyielding yet compassionate. Oh, but therein lies the essence of resilience. Faithfulness does not equate to ignorance of suffering, rather, it demands the courage to ask questions, to wrestle with one's reality. Job's lament was a conversation with the Almighty, a dialogue born from a place of anguish. It is in those moments of deep questioning that the soul finds strength, for through discomfort, enlightenment can emerge. Might we then find our own voices in our suffering? Anna asked, her brow furrowed with contemplation. Do we allow our pain to echo through the ages, or do we drown it out, fearing what we might uncover? The keeper's gaze turned toward the stars shining brightly above, as if seeking guidance from the very heavens. Your voice is your power, dear ones. There exists a fragile truth, in owning one's anguish, there comes a unique liberation. Consider the widow who approached the temple, offering her last coins. In her poverty, she revealed a wealth of spirit that spoke volumes. It is not the magnitude of what we have lost that defines us, but the abundance of what we can offer. Even in our scarcity, the notes of quiet murmurs crafted a tapestry of understanding among them. Here, they were learning not only to confront their fears and embrace their struggles but also to recognize the profound strength hidden within their vulnerabilities. As the hours slipped away, Miles pondered aloud, but how are we to navigate our stories? Are we the architects of our destinies, or mere wanderers captured in a divine tapestry? With a gentle smile, the keeper replied, Oh, my friend, therein lies the crux of our existence. The dance of destiny and free will is a complex ballet, an intertwined embrace of choices and circumstances. It is a journey marked by faith, humility, and an eternal longing for connection. Yet, remember, each step we take echoes in realms unseen. Our choices ripple through time, influencing not only ourselves but those who come after us. At this, the group contemplated the impact of their lives, recognizing how their narratives were connected, not merely to each individual's struggles but to the collective human experience. Each story they held was rich with lessons, and as they began to understand the weight of their own histories, they felt the power of transition igniting between them. As the night waned and the first light of dawn threatened the horizon, a lingering thought took root. Each person in attendance could feel it whispering through the depths of their spirit, what threads of our own stories intertwine with those of our ancestors, and how might they guide us in letting go and moving toward the light of new beginnings. As the first rays of dawn illuminated the horizon, casting a warm glow over the remnants of the night, a palpable change swept through the gathering. The flickering embers of the fire still lingered in the air, much like the remnants of their doubt and fear. Moses stood tall, his spirit invigorated by the insights shared throughout the night. He felt the weight of history colliding with the promise of the future, creating a worthy path for his people. With hope coursing through him, he addressed the assembly with newfound fervor. In the tales we've uncovered, we find not just stories of despair but narratives of triumph and rediscovery. Each figure laid bare their wounds, yet they emerge, not merely surviving, but transcending their struggles. Let us not forget, the altar on which we sacrifice our burdens can become the very crown from which our new selves rise. The crowd listened intently, a collective breath hitching in anticipation. The quest for transformation was no longer an abstract notion, it was tangible, expressed in the faces surrounding him. He witnessed vulnerability metamorphosing into strength, a testament to the courage burgeoning in their hearts. A hush settled as the young child, emboldened by the wisdom flowing around her, stepped closer to Moses. Her small voice broke the silence, clear and unwavering. What will happen if we let go? What if we lose everything? The purity of her question cut straight to the essence of their fear. Moses knelt before her, his eyes shimmering with empathy. Little one, letting go does not mean losing all, rather, it is an opening for receiving more than we could ever imagine. Like the sun that breaks through the clouds after a storm, there is light on the other side of our surrender and awakening to possibilities yet unseen. True loss is holding on to what was never ours to keep and fearing what is yet to be found. As the child pondered his words, a murmur of understanding rippled through the crowd, as faces turned towards one another, reflecting both apprehension and hope. Faces softened, the lines of worry beginning to smooth as insecurities were replaced with anticipation. Eli, now emboldened by their shared dialogue, stepped forward. We have journeyed through treachery and redemption, through suffering and forgiveness. What if, through our choices, we create the freedom we seek? Can we chart a new course for ourselves and for those who will follow? Moses smiled at the wisdom rippling within Eli. Yes. We can forge a narrative that reclaims our identity as a people, centered around love, hope, and understanding. Each step we take toward liberation fuels the fire of collective renewal. The stories of our past no longer hold sway over us, instead, they become the roots from which new strength can grow. The collective consciousness seemed to pulse with unity, the force of their shared journey crafting a new understanding that echoed beyond their individual fears. Eyes glistened as they began to grasp the true essence of letting go, a liberation not defined by the past but by intentions forged with courage and love. Miriam raised her hands, solidarity resonating in her heart. If we let go of the shackles that bind us, we step into the light where purpose awaits, beckoning like a beacon on the horizon. Together, we can transcend the narratives written by fear. In that moment, there was a shift in the gathering. A collective decision simmered among them. They would not allow their past to dictate their future, nor would they sacrifice their potential in the shadows of yesterday. Fear gave way to hope, and with unlikely courage, they began to share their stories, each word and ember igniting the hearts around them. From the edges of the group, the elderly man who had once trembled with uncertainty stood. He spoke, his voice steady. We have lost much, but we have gained wisdom. Much like the moth emerging from the cocoon, our struggle births greater purpose. Let us seek to embrace the discomfort of growth, for it is there that we find the strength to fly. They began to assemble in a circle, a living tapestry of life experiences, each thread colorful and unique, yet interwoven into the fabric of their shared humanity. Conversations transformed, whispers of doubt morphed into declarations of faith. As the sun began to crest the horizon, a golden light washed over them, a sign of new beginnings. Tonight, under the watchful stars, Moses proclaimed, we have sown seeds of hope and understanding, and now we shall nurture this truth: we are not just inhabitants of our past, but architects of our future. With each step forward, we divest ourselves of chains, reclaiming our identities in the light of purpose and unity. The transformation of that night rippled outward with growing momentum, forging connections that crossed generations. The Israelites stood ready, armed with their collective resilience, hearts stirred and minds awakened. A sweet whisper unfurled in the air, a realization that what they let go of was only the beginning of what they could become. As the first sunbeams brushed the desert, Moses felt a surge of divine inspiration. We walk not only for ourselves but for those yet to come. Let us pave a trail illuminated by our shared stories, a beacon for others who wander in search of light, he declared, his voice steady and strong. In that sacred moment, the dawn of their liberation was no longer a distant promise but an immediate realistic collective, powerful revelation that rang with freedom. The journey ahead would be filled with challenges and victories, but they were ready to confront them not as isolated souls bound by doubt but as a unified people glowing with possibility. And so, standing together, they entered the new day willing to embrace their stories, inspired to walk their paths, and committed to illuminate the shadows that threatened their forward march. In their hearts echoed the promise, we are free to become who we were always meant to be.